I had a thought the other night that completely changed the way I looked at the idea of evil. What if the devil was never a person? Not a creature, not a fallen angel, not an entity hiding somewhere in the universe. What if devil was a frequency? And before you click away thinking I've lost my mind, hear me out. Humans have always personified things we couldn't fully understand. Death became the Grim Reaper, luck became a goddess, time became an old man carrying a scythe, the ocean became Poseidon, the sky became Zeus. We turned forces into faces because faces are easier to understand. Maybe we did the same thing with good and evil. Maybe God and the devil became characters because consciousness is harder to explain than people. Think about fear for a second. Fear doesn't have a body. You can't point at it. You can't photograph it. Yet fear can completely possess a person. Fear can make someone lie. Fear can make someone cheat. Fear can make someone betray people they love. Fear can make entire nations go to war. It has no physical form, but its effects are everywhere. So, what if the devil isn't a being? What if the devil is a frequency of fear itself, a state of consciousness, a mode of existence, a lens through which reality is experienced? Because if you really think about it, most of the things we call evil have a common root. Greed comes from fear of not having enough, jealousy comes from fear of not being enough, control comes from fear of losing power, hatred often comes from fear of what even cruelty can emerge from fear buried so deep that it disguises itself as strength. Maybe evil isn't a monster. Maybe evil is fear left unchecked. And suddenly the image changes. The battle isn't between you and some external devil. The battle is between different states of consciousness inside you. And honestly, I find that idea more terrifying because if evil is an external being, you can blame it. You can say the devil made me do it. But if evil is a frequency, a state of mind, a pattern of consciousness, then responsibility comes back to us. There's nothing left to blame, no cosmic scapegoat, no villain waiting in the shadows, just us. And that brings me to something else. I think humans desperately need stories, we need narratives, we need characters. If your friend betrays you, it's comforting to imagine some evil force influenced them because the alternative is harder. The alternative is accepting that ordinary people can do extraordinary harm. Not because they're possessed, not because they're monsters, but because they are humans. History is full of examples. Some of the worst atrocities weren't committed by mythical villains, they were committed by regular people, people who had families, people who laughed, people who believed that they were doing the right thing. And that's what makes evil so difficult to understand. It rarely announces itself, it rarely looks like a monster. Most of the time, it looks completely ordinary. Maybe that's why we created the image of the devil in the first place, to make evil visible, to give it a face, to separate it from ourselves. Because it's uncomfortable to admit that darkness doesn't only exist out there, it exists in here, inside every human being. And before that sounds depressing, I actually think there's something hopeful about it. Because if evil is a frequency, then so is goodness. Think about moments when you felt genuinely connected to life. Maybe it was during prayer, maybe during meditation, maybe while watching a sunset, maybe while creating something, maybe while sitting with someone you love. In those moments, reality feels different. Your priorities change, your thoughts change, your perception changes. It's almost as if you tuned into a completely different station, a different frequency. Some people call that God, others call it presence, others call it consciousness, others call it love. The label doesn't matter, the experience does. And maybe that's why so many spiritual traditions, despite being separated by geography and thousands of years, keep pointing towards similar ideas. Less fear, more awareness, less ego, more compassion, less attachment, more presence. Almost as if the goal was never to worship a distant figure. Almost as if the goal was to transform your state of consciousness. to tune yourself towards something higher, which leads me to the question I can't stop thinking about. What if heaven and hell aren't places? What if they're frequencies too? Not destinations, states. Maybe we've all experienced both moments of deep peace, moments of deep suffering, moments where we felt connected to everything, moments where we felt completely lost. Maybe heaven and hell begin long before death. Maybe we visit them every day. And if that's true, then the most important spiritual question isn't, do you believe in the devil? The more important question might be, what are you feeding inside yourself? Fear or courage? Hatred or understanding? Resentment or forgiveness? Awareness or distraction? Because whatever we feed grows, and whatever grows begins shaping the reality we live in. So maybe the devil was never a person, maybe it was a frequency, maybe God is too, and maybe the story of human life is simply learning which one we're tuning into. I don't know if any of this is true, it's just a thought, but it's a thought that has been living in my head lately, and honestly, the more I sit with it, the more interesting it becomes.